Welcome back to Exploring the Edges. Jen, I'm so happy to be back sitting in this seat with you.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's been a minute.
I know I did really enjoy that break, but I'm excited also to now return to sharing ourselves with everyone.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, so as a quick recap, in season one, we covered the artist way, but we're sort of moving away from that format going forward. And so I thought I would just let everybody know that what we do before the show is we drop in and these conversations are actually channeled. And so I thought I might give our viewers, our listeners, just a little peek into our process and how we determine what to talk about for each show.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea and we won't be too long in case you're not interested, but for anybody who is, we thought it would be a good idea to talk about it.
Yeah. So what we do is drop into a meditative state, come into our hearts. We create some coherence. And then we open ourselves up to receiving the energy of the collective group of people who might listen to our podcast. So
Yeah.
once we're in that space, we just sort of get quiet and listen about what could be helpful to share with our viewers. And sometimes we have some personal experiences that are sort of on the top, and then sometimes we actually need to do a little bit of digging to see like what the best way to share these ideas are. We pull some oracle cards and then we sort of close that session and give gratitude. And so this is just a really small look into the pre-production process of how we start to think about what to talk about on our podcast.
Yeah, we wanted to really serve everybody who listens. So sometimes we're sitting in some really deep stuff and we feel like maybe we want to talk about it. And so we ask if it would be helpful for people who might be listening to sit in it with us. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And then we kind of, try and come up with something else that may be related or might have something to do with the astrology that we're all steeped in, whether we follow it or not. You're in it. So.
Yeah, it's so true and interesting. Today is 5/5,
Hmm.
which people who are interested in numerology could check out the significance of the 5/5 portal or just feeling into the energetics of the numerology. And also, we're just fresh out of a Pluto retrograde. So we won't go deep into that, but it is very much influencing the current energetic environment.
Yeah, and I'm finding, Jack, even a lot of the people that I'm talking to these days who are not following the astrology or anything else are kind of steeped in all of the same stuff that like we've been steeped in. And it's
Mm.
just really interesting, to be able to see those synchronicities and kind of recognize that everybody's just going through the same thing in their own ways. Like just
Oh
one.
yeah. Yeah, and it's also a really beautiful nod to how our own lived experience, our own perception, like I was reading about this just today, we could see a big wave crashing in the ocean. And for those of us who are like surfers, we're like, oh wow, great, a big wave's crashing in the and for those of us who have like past life trauma or lived experience with like scary waves, we're like, oh God, the ocean's scary today. Same wave, same ocean, just a completely different view. So really interesting to think about the influences of our own lived experience.
Yeah.
We will not go too deep into the astrology, though. We have so much to talk about today, and I'm actually really excited to dig into some of these themes that we've written down.
Well, one of us has written them down. The
I
one
know
with
you have
the
it up
Virgo,
here.
yeah, the one with the Virgo moon has written them down. The
I
other
know it's
one,
locked up tight, Foley. I know it.
yeah, the other one will respond.
Oh, Jenny. So let's start. Let's start at where we think is a really good launch point to sort of speak into our message for today's show. And we are going to start to unpack consumption and not just consumption of products or food or media, but we're really going to dive deep into the energetics of, not just material things, but also people, places. We're going to really start to unpack some of the ways that we can be influenced by the world around us.
Yeah, and without even realizing it.
Yeah, and I think Jen, if you want to sort of start speaking into this, because I do think that you are in really fertile ground for this right now. I feel like every episode you're talking about this purge that you're doing, but
I was just gonna say.
but, but you're really in it. You're
Oh,
really in it. So maybe you can start there, and then maybe we can start to see the different threads that sort of come out of this central column.
yeah. So, if you've been following us for a while, you know that I have been talking about the purge. And it has been pulling at me for quite some time.
Mm,
But and we won't get into the astrology, but a little bit of what we touched on is really moving this forward for a lot of people in a lot of ways. And I've been feeling it hardcore and just like bags and bags and bags of physical items just going out of my house and finding homes for some of them, donating some things are just trash. It is what it is, you know, some things are recycled. There's a lot of papers from my past that I just don't need.
mm,
Um, and yeah, so I'm like really sitting in it. And the last couple of days have been super intense. Like
mm,
this level of motivation, this level of drive to just spend all kinds of time. And we call it the multi-room because, you know, there's like a desk in there and there's a space for yoga and an altar and all of these things in this room. And to just go hard through everything.
mm,
And I was talking to my mom this morning, and I even mentioned to her that it's crazy because I can come in the house now, and even if I'm not up in that room, like the house feels different because yesterday
mm,
I took a bunch of stuff. I took a guitar stand to a friend for her kid, and I took stuff to our local like thrift shop that all of the money goes to the hospital and things like that. So
mhm,
it's like physically out of the house now, and there's
mhm,
still more to do, but it's amazing how different the space feels. And part of it is having like this like just more physical space when you look around, it doesn't feel so cluttered. And part of it is it's just the energy's just not in there anymore.
mm,
Yeah, so it's just like a combination of having clearer surfaces and just not having the energetics and the items. And I think talking about the energetics and the items is maybe like a good jumping off point for this conversation. And I'll let you maybe speak into it a little bit, but also I think what's coming in and I think most people can relate to is like if somebody gifts you something or
mm,
you end up with something, even if you don't like it, it's really hard to part with. Like you have this ugly little thing from like your grandma that when you look at it, it doesn't even remind you of her. It's not like the thing that was in her house that like
mm,
resonated with that reminds you of her, but it's like really hard to part with it. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that and using that as like the energetics of an item
mm.
a jumping off point for maybe everything else would be like a helpful kind of like anchor for the conversation.
Yeah, yeah, and I do think that it is, because I do think that even people who are sensitive to energy, even empaths and highly sensitive people, water signs, people who can really walk into a room and like feel the mood, people who can have a conversation with a friend, and even when the friend like everything is going really well, they know that there's something else underneath, right? The energetics can be subtle, like it's not always that like in your face, what am I doing with this item? Ugh, this makes me feel awful. Even though I do think that there are situations where that's the case, right? Like we end up with something from an ex or something from, we have these certain items that once we find them, we're like, why do I still have this in my house? Like, ugh, this is not me. We like get rid of it. But sometimes I think that the underlying energy can be a bit more subtle. And if I could just deep dive for a minute and you tell me when
Yeah,
to cut it
sure.
off. Yeah, so I think when I start to feel into the energetics of an item, like there's this felt sense first on the surface of how the item makes me feel. And when we're living in this really full experience where we don't have a lot of downtime, we're always max, we have something going on all the time, we're always busy, we're always late, we're overwhelmed, we're stretched thin. We don't ever really have a chance to sit with that. Like, how does this item make me feel? And if we haven't done the inner work to connect with that, to that felt sense in the body, how does this make me feel? Then we don't have the opportunity to do this. But if you have done that, you've developed the practice, you can sit with an item. How does this make me feel? You have stillness. You can reach into the deeper energetics of it. And then underneath that, there are energetics from all of the processes, all of the hands that brought this item or this song or this apple, like it's not just items, it's all things that are created, and we talked about this a lot last season, the energetics of creation. But we can feel into this, even something like song lyrics, like song lyrics have this incredibly profound energetic resonance. There's a felt sense when you listen to one song versus a different song. But I feel like I have that level of sensitivity even between two objects. Like we could look at, for example, we could look at a bag that was handmade. We can tell that maybe the materials are organic, maybe they were handled with care. This bag is handmade, it was stamped purposefully, it was held with love. It comes in the mail, it has a little note, like this is the woman that made it. You can feel into this, right? Like you can feel that energy. This is how it feels. And when we have a similar bag that has been through a different production process, maybe it's come from a long way away, and maybe the people that made it are in like slave factories, right? Maybe the people who stitched it are children, right? Like they're being exploited. Maybe the resources were stolen, like we can also feel that. You can feel that in an item.
Hmm.
And I know that not everybody is living this experience where they are acutely aware of the energetics that their items are carrying, but this is a truth, a foundational truth, that there's an energetic signature, frequency signature in everything. And I think what happens, like what you're sort of moving through, Jen, is maybe our felt sense of an item is subtle, you know? And what happens when you have a house full of things, right?
Hmm.
Like it's like a cacophony of frequency. It's a symphony of sound, and we can't like um, pinpoint specifically like where that felt sense is coming from. And
Hmm.
I think when people go through these big processes, like I've done it many times in my life, when you sort of like a lot of times when we're moving into a new phase of our life, when we're moving into a new timeline, we're timeline jumping, we're adopting new identities, we're moving to a different city for a new job, right? Like all of these big transits in our life, we're moving in with somebody, our partner. We're moving away, we're moving out from somebody, our partner. These big opportunities to really like hold a lot of energetics at once, whether that's bringing them in or shifting them out, right? Like this is when we're able to feel it even more acutely, even more finely. And it becomes similar to walking into a room and immediately reading the energy, right? Or walking into your house after many things have left and being like, wow, this feels significantly different.
Hmm. I'll quickly just tie it into consumption, and I know that there's like so much room for expansion, but like if this is like how much energy you can take, I think when you're shifting and like going into like something bigger, then like you have to like empty some of it out, and all of these like energies that are kind of like keeping you in the same place that you were in, if you need to move forward, they need to leave so that there's space for all of the new stuff to come in. So that was the first thing that I did want to touch on. Um,
Wait, before you move forward,
okay.
are you going to remember if we stay on this one for a minute?
Hopefully, yeah. If not, it wasn't meant to be.
Well, you say it and we'll come back because I'll remember.
Okay. Yeah, you will. Um, yeah, because I would like to talk about that more and how it's related to consumption because even the energies in your things, like when we say consumption, you're thinking about like the water that you drink and the juice and the food that you eat and the pop or the soda or whatever, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but it's everything. And so like what you're speaking into, and that what we can acknowledge that not everybody can feel, because maybe not everybody can feel the energetics like in this cup or in your phone or in the bag, right?
Hmm.
But I think on some level you can. Like I think it's like when you say to somebody like, I don't feel 100%, but I don't know what's going on, you know?
Hmm.
And I think, I mean, I feel like already this episode could be like 10 hours long. So we'll have to be careful and maybe actually deep dive into some of these like in individual episodes, but
Hmm.
I think that this just came in that with the bags, that is the difference between like conscious consumerism and fast fashion, if you want to call it fast fashion or whatever, right? And it can be completely unconscious, completely subconscious. But if you relate like this bag that was handmade with love, you came with a note, you feel like very connected to it, everybody was paid fairly, everything was sourced like ethically, and then this other one that was not, I think that's why it makes it so easy to like throw it out, get a new one, throw it out, get a new one, throw it out, get a new one, even if you're not conscious at all, right?
Ooh,
Because the one bag feels like this weird thing from grandma's that you really have to think about whether or not you want to get rid of it because it feels special. And the other
yeah,
one just it doesn't feel special. Yeah, put my lunch in it, it doesn't matter, like it doesn't feel special at all. And one of those items is going to be much, much harder to part with, and one is going to be much easier. And I think it just feeds into this loop where everything's throwaway. Well, I don't like
yeah,
this shirt anymore. I don't like this bag anymore. Because if you have no connection to it and it like feels weird, even if you don't realize it,
yeah,
like something's making me feel weird. Like in
yeah.
Harry Potter, when they finally realize that the like Horcrux is making them all feel not okay and they have to share it, like this bag that you're wearing is probably making you feel not okay in some ways, you know?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and we could like go on a big, huge tangent into that, which I won't right now, but I just think it's really interesting to think into in this like state that I'm in with purging. There are some things that are so easy just to be like, oh yeah, I'll donate it. Somebody else can love it. I'm not using it. It doesn't, I don't have no feeling towards it, or this doesn't feel good. Versus
Mhm.
like stuff that's just steeped in memories and was created with love, like so much love and thoughtfulness at the time. And it's really hard to part with some of those things, and sometimes you do have to part with them to fill the cup. I looped it back. All
Yeah,
right.
you're
We're
doing
getting
great.
better. We're getting better at the
You're,
podcast thing, everyone.
you're
Right?
doing
To fill the cup so that you can move on to the next thing because you need to empty the cup. And this maybe this one little bag, um, it empties the cup just, just a little bit. And this one that's really hard to part with, but that is really holding you back is gonna like create so much space so that you can just leap forward.
Yeah, and I think
Mm.
it's interesting as we tie it, it's a really beautiful observation as we tie it back to this idea that we have capacity.
Hmm.
We have capacity. We have capacity. We are responsible for it, not just items, but like all of the things that we interact with, TV, music, our friends, the conversations that we're having. We have a certain level of responsibility towards it. And I think it's easier to see with items because we have to store it in our house. We have to find a place for it. If it breaks, we have to fix it. If we no longer need it, we have to throw it in the trash. That we are responsible for it. And so the more items we have, the the less capacity we have to be responsible for these things, and so when we are looking at your example, it's a beautiful example of a cup with water in it. Oftentimes when we are yeah, we're calling in something when we sit and manifest, Jen. when we sit at the new moon and we plant our seeds, when we sit and manifest. Something like something like me saying, I want to experience a deeper level of authenticity, right? Something simple. Here's my manifestation, authenticity.
Mhm.
And so what happens then is that ripples out into your entire life.
Yeah.
And without you even realizing it, you're like, all right, is this my favorite song? Is this me authentically? My favorite shirt, is this me authentically? My favorite coffee mug, it has a weird picture on it from somebody that I used to be 20 years ago, right? Like, is this me now? Is this authentically me now? And so it spreads out, it ripples out into all of the things, and what it's doing is checking the energetic resonance. And it's because these things have frequency. And
Hmm.
this is why sometimes we can come in and out of alignment with things that feel like inanimate, unorganized objects or songs or pictures, like there's so much science in feng shui, like
Yeah.
changing just the placement of your couch can feel like it's created an entirely different space. And I'm not well versed
Yeah,
in those
me neither, but
sciences.
it's so interesting. Yeah, it's so
It's
interesting.
super interesting. And I think we even have an example. I don't know if you want to share about moving the
Oh,
placement of Rafiki's bed, because it's so interesting, like you can Google these things, like what is the energetics of sleeping with my head to the north versus sleeping with my head to the south, east to west even. All of this is available on Google, and you can just go and see, like, and what is the energetics of this placement of this position.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, maybe not everybody can relate, but I do know that some people can. And I know that some people can relate but are unbothered. But even like for me, I feel like I'm so sensitive in so many ways and am feeling it the more and more I open up to it, right? And so before I go into moving Rafiki's bed, which I will, I'm feeling like when you go into a restaurant, does anybody leave a comment? Leave a comment. When you go into a restaurant, is there like, do you instantly know where you want to sit or instantly know, like, I do not want to sit in that chair? Because it feels weird to be like out in the open and have your back pointed a certain way. Like, or is that just me? I don't think it's just me,
It
Jack.
is just you. It is just you.
Yeah, but it's a real thing where you just like I don't want to that's not the seat. If I will sit there if I have to, but that would not be my choice. And
Maybe the comment section will help you out, because
oh,
this is not
yeah,
my experience.
leave a comment, leave a comment. Maybe we'll make this a short too. Do you have a preferred seat? The first, like when you go into a restaurant, do you know exactly where you want to sit? Because I would like to know. I'm genuinely curious. So, because I think that there's energetics to it, and I think it
Mm,
depends where you're at and how protected you feel or whatever. But there's
mm.
definitely seats that I would prefer not to sit in and seats that I'm like feel nice and cozy and can settle into in a restaurant.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so the next thing is moving Rafiki's bed, which was this dog. I'm not gonna dive into it, but I'm tired, guys. I'm tired, friends. Like he's been sick, he's been up in the night, and before he ate some mystery food out of the ditch, he he was not sleeping. He was not sleeping. We moved into this house in at the end of October. So we've been here since November. It was technically November 1st. It was after midnight by the time we got everything in.
Hmm.
And I have lived here before. I lived here 2 years before, same house. And he didn't have any problem sleeping here. We were in the other room, and I don't think it's that. I think it's just a combination of stuff. But we were in a smaller room. His bed was across, like if the bed was here, his bed was at the foot of the bed. And that's where he was sleeping in relation to the bed at the last place we lived. Fine, sleeping through the night. Here, waking up in the night, walking around won't hop up on the bed. He's just ticking around the house. I have to get out of bed and go to pick him up. And when I go to pick him up, he like runs away. It's a whole thing. And finally, we decided to get rid of the bedside table because there's barely even room for bedside tables. and we decided to get rid of the bedside table on my side of the bed. And I put a tiny floating shelf there and put the dog's bed right on the floor. And he's now sleeping through the night. Other than being sick, other than being sick. Um, but he's been sleeping through the night. He wakes up earlier, but I think it's just because like the sun is out. So at 5:30 in the morning, it's already light. But yeah, it's a complete game changer. So I don't know if it's just he didn't like being in that corner of the room. He's still on the floor, so it's not like he can see onto the bed any better. I'm not sure what it is, but he's not walking around in the middle of the night. So
Yeah, and I think a
yeah.
real easy way to to just test that for yourself is to like sleep with your head at the other end of the bed for a night and just observe, like it really makes a big difference. I remember when I first got into this space, like I would sleep with my head at the other end and I was like having all kinds of crazy dreams. And then I switched to the other side of the bed, like restful sleep. And so I do think that it has to do with the ley lines, the energetic lines in the earth, the poles. I'm not sure, the moon. I'm not sure what it has to do with, but
I did that when I
there's,
was a teenager.
yeah, there's
I slept
science
with my
there.
head at the foot of the bed. I didn't even turn the bed frame around. I just started sleeping with
Yeah,
my head at the foot of the bed. And for some reason, it felt so much better for such a long time. I don't
yeah,
know.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, energy is wild. The energetics of things. And yeah, it's just everything. It's just
And I
everything.
and also sort of tying back into this example with the cup, like I think when there are less things overall, then you have like a better chance of feeling into the energetics of, you know, a particular thing, whether, like if you're watching 8 different shows, versus watching one show. Like how does television make me feel,
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And it's just like white noise. Like how do you have a conversation? How do you have a conversation with one person when there's like 100 people talking around you and you're kind of hearing everything? So I think when you have a house full of stuff, it's the same kind of thing, right? It just sort of becomes like white noise and you don't even really realize why you feel weird.
Yeah, and also similarly, like with if you're trying to do like an elimination diet, right? You're having like some kind of body response to a certain food. Like, how do you, it's how do you do that without an elimination? Trying to figure out like, okay, I feel good when I eat this. I don't feel great when I eat that. It's sort of the same thing. Like
Yeah.
when I listen to this music, I feel good. When I listen to this music, I don't feel good, right?
Yeah.
And just feeling, letting yourself have that sensitivity. I think a lot of us really shy away from this embracing this felt sense of energetics because we're afraid that we're going to experience fear and suffering,
Hmm.
and so we like shut it off. And we can do a whole different episode on that.
Yeah.
But I do think that when we start to open to receiving these imprints, like even Jen, you and I, we're such beautiful empaths. And it really gives us such a gift when we work with others, such gifted healers. But it does come with this price, like there was a spider in a trash bag recently, and she had her like little bundle of eggs. And she was trying to get out of the trash bag. I could feel her panic, I could feel her trying to protect her egg sac. I could feel her, the spider. I could feel her fear and panic. And so that's just like a very small example when we start to really deep dive into felt energetics that it's not all joy
Yeah.
and bliss and pleasure. But as with all things, the deeper we can feel, the deeper we can feel joy,
Yeah.
you know? And so I do think, and also it helps us align our energy. It helps us align our energy such that the energetics of what's around us are supportive, are resonant, and we don't have all of this dissonant energy that we're always trying to neutralize in our energetic fields.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Jen,
Yes.
something that you shared with me about the energetics of items and something that you're always sort of sharing your teachings with me more about is this idea that we are a web. We're a web. And so when we look around, it's not just the stuff that's in our house or the music that we're listening to on the radio or what we're consuming on television or media, we have to actually look at the web, you know? So when you and I come together in our energetic fields, you're bringing with you the entire energetic frequency of your environment.
Mm-hmm.
And your environment is all of the things, the food that you eat, everyone you've ever loved, you know, like all of your items in your house, the energetics of the fabrics, the energetics of the animals. If you did consume animals and you don't,
Mm-hmm.
but if you did, you would be bringing with you the frequency of the animals that you've consumed.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turns into this much larger field in terms of what you're consuming when you start to look at the people that are around you because they are projecting their own fears. They are bringing their own love, right? Like they're bringing the people that are around you are bringing the entire energetic frequency of their entire lives, everything that's in their field, in their environment. And we can ripple it out even further, you know? And I think,
Oh, it goes on infinitely, right? Even if you just choose one person, like even if I'm bringing the stuff that I got from my mom, like through raising me, growing me from a child, everything that she was going through, everything she was navigating. And then she's bringing the stuff from being raised by her parents and, like vice versa. Even if you just do like parental, that
sure.
it just goes on infinitely. It just goes on infinitely. But then if it's like every friend that they've ever had, every experience they've ever had, everything they've ever eaten, and then everything that their parents have ever, like it's just it's just wild. It's completely wild to think about.
Yeah, and it is interesting, you know, like if I find myself sometimes right now, the world around me is really gentle, you know, like my circle, the circle around me, my lived experience, it's very gentle and it's very conscientious of my level of sensitivity. And I feel really grateful for that. Some of it is a byproduct of the boundaries I've set, but it's very gentle. And when I find myself sometimes outside of that circle, it's like, what the fuck? You know, like, what? Like, is this what's happening out here? You know, like, it's very jarring. It's very abrupt and arresting, you know, like, holy heck, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think when that happens, like the clash, we can really feel it. But at the subtle level, you know, there's that kind of thing. So we need to be able to feel that
Yeah.
because then we can integrate it, absorb it, integrate it, and align ourselves differently. And this is where we can come back to that cup and
Mm-hmm.
where we're able to remove or process or make different choices around what's in the cup. What we're doing is just bringing in more alignment. And actually what we're doing is increasing our sensitivity because that's what's happening. You know, like the more attuned we are with our own energetic field, we're just making it so that we can have a better radar kind of. We're just increasing our own sensitivity, our own alignment, resonance, you know?
Yeah.
The cycle keeps going.
Sure does.
I feel like we could talk about really any of the things for a much longer time, but
Maybe we
maybe
should one day.
yeah, but just maybe an invitation to start to look at
Mm-hmm.
what's around and what your responsibility is over those things and how they make you feel.
Yeah.
And if you're at a place in your life, which maybe probably you are because Pluto's retrograde and you know, there's this big call, this big shift for a subconscious power to be made known
Mm-hmm.
where we can start to identify where we feel out of touch or out of resonance, where we feel like we don't fit in, you know, like it's not just about clearing out a closet, it's about clearing out all of it. What you listen to, what you're watching on television, who your friends are, all of it has to be observed.
Yeah, it's all affecting you like more than you even realize.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I could talk for like another 2 hours about this.
Yeah, and I think the last thing that I'll say, Jen, is that we are exactly where we need to be. We are facing exactly what we need to face. We're looking at we're at exactly the right time we've arrived.
Hmm.
And so as we, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're flowing with the ocean that is the unified collective consciousness, and everything is exact. You're just right where you're supposed to be, and you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're feeling it, please
And
remind yourself.
and rest and rest.
Oh, yes, rest is
Rest.
not doing nothing. Rest. It's so important. Rest and integration.
Yes. Yes, it is so important to rest because we think that we're doing nothing. And essentially what we're doing is our entire being, our field is recalibrating all the time based on what's coming in and out of our collective field. And so, it's like a big haul of groceries getting delivered and everything needs to go into the cupboards and the fridge. And same with everything leaving. It takes effort to organize and drop off the donations. Everything is recalibrating all of the time, and it's in that rest and integration period that we're actually feeling the changes, the frequencies changing.
Yeah, sometimes they don't even always feel good. Like sometimes there's uneasiness that comes with it, and you have to kind of chip away at um, where that's coming from. But if you're just constantly consuming and constantly ordering and constantly doing all of these things all the time, you never
Hmm.
get to feel it. And if you don't feel it, then you can't heal it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, so rest is super important, even if you feel like you're doing nothing or you're behind schedule or doesn't, like you said, Jen, really important to tune into what's coming up in those periods. But if we can start to see rest as a like a recalibration,
Hmm.
right? Because this is what's happening. We're taking in new levels of consciousness. We're leaving from old paradigms, old karmic patterns, old ways of being, old ways of thinking. It's a huge undertaking for our bodies.
Yeah. 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 We need to really step away from the vilification of rest that society is always pushing on us.
Freaking patriarchy.
Yeah.
Not letting the women do the work that's needed.
No, it's not letting anybody do the work that's needed if we're being really honest, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it also ties into this thing that we wanted to speak about, which is like this all or nothing that you and I have struggled with, but many, many people have. And I think if rest feels like you're doing nothing, then you're going to also struggle with rest, you know? And
Mhm.
all of this and like we said, we could speak into it for so much longer, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, don't say like I can't get rid of everything because there's some things I'm gonna have a hard time with, so I'm not gonna do it at all.
Right.
Just start. You can just start, get rid of that one thing that you're sure about, and maybe you get rid of another thing you're sure about 2 weeks later. Or maybe you can start with we did speak about like how we could feel the energetics behind different objects earlier, but also you can feel it in the things that you eat, the food that you eat. And you and I
Sure.
are quite sensitive and can feel the difference between like an egg from a store from a chicken farm versus an egg from a chicken that's living down the road that gets little chin scratches every day, you know?
Hmm.
And it's okay to be just be conscious of that. Just the
Sure.
starting point, and don't beat yourself up over like not being able to have them or not having access or not having that connection yet or any of these
Not
things.
being able to afford the ethically produced, sourced,
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to eggs, it's
organic.
like a third the price to get them from down the road. But like sometimes, yeah, maybe you can't get that bag that's all made by hand. Maybe you just don't get a bag. Maybe you
Yeah.
just use a
Or
grocery bag, that you already have that was like,
yeah. But
you
or
know,
if you do get the bag, letting it be an experiment, letting it be a learning opportunity, letting it be an unfolding, approaching with curiosity. Can I
yeah,
can I feel this?
yeah. Yeah, don't beat yourself up for not being able to do everything just because you can't get all ethical clothes, all ethical food, all organic food, all, because you live in a household full of people who are watching TV and you're just surrounded by the TV. So I think it's okay just to start to bring awareness of it, you know?
Yeah.
And if instead of just watching the show, you can ask yourself, like, how does this show make me feel?
Yeah.
If it's making me feel great and laugh or it's inspiring me, then great, there's nothing wrong with it. And not that there's anything inherently wrong with it, but maybe it's a suspense show and it's causing you anxiety and you're already walking through your life riddled with anxiety.
Yeah.
Through that, I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like, why would I add to the pot, you know?
Yeah. My nervous system is already trying to do enough.
It's already maxed, and I have my hands in the air, and I'm like trying to regulate. I'm like, why am I watching this movie that's causing me stress? Like, why? You know?
Yeah.
So I think don't beat yourself up if you can't do everything, and just even if you do one thing, it makes a bigger difference than you realize.
Yeah. Or if you do one thing with awareness, it's huge.
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah, it makes a huge difference in your life, and I mean, that's where it all starts. You do one single thing with awareness and you feel how different that feels, and that's when it all starts.
Yeah, you're right. It's presence.
Yeah, little by little, more presence, more awareness, more conscious decisions, more
More
conscious conversations. What are you gonna say?
more rest.
More rest. Oh yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that some of these threads will be woven again if it serves, but just hoping that this message reaches somebody where they're at now, if they're looking out into their life,
Yeah.
their eyes wide open.
Yeah, we see you. You're doing so well.
Yeah, just
Doing
really
so
hoping that this message serves and that something that we've said was interesting or opened a door or even a window, open a window, a crack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to come back next week, Jen.
Yeah, me too.
It'll be interesting to see what's alive in the field that we're going to talk about next week. Jen and I talked about maybe potentially having guests on the
Oh
podcast.
yeah, we would
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, we're going to explore that to see if there's any aligned guests that we can welcome onto the show. Yeah, and just really sending so much gratitude for anyone who's joined us. We so appreciate you having you in the space because it helps us tune into what's needed to be shared and it helps us share our hearts.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, everybody. We appreciate you so, so much.
Okay, see everyone next week.
Yeah, see you next week.